welcome to our Look Good, Feel Better webinar. I hope you're all feeling well and keeping safe and continuing to live in the COVID world. And we know it's a difficult time and we acknowledge that. But we are here for you, and so do keep tuned in to learn about hair and scalp care and all you should know about headwear before, during and after treatment. So we at the Marie Keating Foundation would like to extend a warm welcome to you all this afternoon and have great pleasure in introducing you to two very special panelists. But before I do that, this afternoon is yours. For those of you who have had a cancer diagnosis and are only too aware of the side effects of treatment and are at the beginning or end of treatment, maybe have survived treatment and are out the other side, and also for those of you who find yourselves on a journey of continuous treatment, for those you dearly care for and those who care for you. So please sit back and enjoy the learning. I'm Helen Forrest, still Director of Nursing at the Marie Keating Foundation. And as always, there are lots of housekeeping rules when we actually start on webinars, but I'm sure most of us are becoming much more familiar with them now. So you are in your own home, so make yourselves comfortable, sit back, make sure you can see and hear us, and make sure you have a drink by your side and maybe even a little treat. If you have a phone beside you, turn it off or silence it. Jen and Ava are in the background, they're a communications team, and they're managing the technology for the hour. So a big thank you to both of you. As an attendee, you do not have the ability to speak to us or put your video on, but there is a Q&A session, and that will be at the end of the webinar. And this session is moderated by Bernie, our senior oncology nurse in the background. We'd love you to participate in this during the webinar by asking questions, and you can do this either anonymously or by name, whichever you would prefer. But feel free to leave a comment or a question on Facebook either. On Zoom, you'll see the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you can click into this, you can type in your question. Make sure you press the return key or the enter key so that we receive the question at our end, and we will answer that during the discussion. If you like questions that you're seeing or it's one that you want to ask yourself, there is a like button like the like icon on Facebook. And if you press that, it will actually push the question to the top of the queue. So we hope that we will get to them and be able to answer them all, but just in case. So you will also see a chat button, but this is not really for questions during this session at least. The webinar is recorded, so this will be available to you in the next day or so. It's always nice to know who's in our audience. So we're all working virtually and we can't see who's in our audience, but I'd like to welcome our own Marie Keating staff, nurses and staff, and Liz Yates, our CEO. I'd also like to welcome anybody who's attended our previous webinars, our members of our Positive Living group, which are women with metastatic breast cancer, and to the wider community of men and women who have metastatic cancers. I would also like to welcome Margaret from Look Good, Feel Better. And Margaret, I think I should be able to bring you in there now. Hi, Margaret. You're there, are you, Margaret? Yeah.
I am, yes.
Margaret, we'd like to hear a little bit about Look Good, Feel Better.
Okay. Right, well, very briefly, Look Good, Feel Better is an international charity. It's in 26 different countries around the world. And essentially what we all do is provide skincare and makeup workshops for women dealing with the visual side effects of cancer treatment. Currently, obviously, we can't run any of our workshops in the hospitals, but we've been running them through Zoom and WhatsApp and any other platform that we can. Normally in the hospitals, particularly in the Dublin hospitals, during the 2-hour workshop, an hour and 40 minutes or so is taken up with the skincare and the makeup. But then we try to bring in somebody who will talk to the women about wigs, scalp care, hair loss, all those questions. And here in Dublin, we have a relationship with Roches, and they, Anne or her staff will come in at the end of a workshop. And this is why we're delighted now today that Anne is on board with us today for this session with the Mary Keating Foundation. So I think it's great that all three bodies now are coming together. It's we've lost a lot of things through COVID, but then, you know, maybe we've gained as well. Certainly I didn't know Helen before all this started, so that's a great advantage. So that's all I have to say. If anyone wants to access a skincare and makeup video call, just go onto our website and register your name and telephone number, and somebody will be in touch. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
That's lovely, Margaret. Thank you very much. And thank you to Look Good, Feel Better for, you know, for working with us as well and supporting this, because again, it's something that we're able to deliver online for people who are cocooning. It's so important, isn't it? So now I'd like to introduce Anne. Sorry now. I need the screen to move on for me. I can't seem to move the screen on. Anne, it's a real delight to have you with us today. Anne Roche is from the Roche family, and Anne comes from 5 generations of hairdressers. Imagine that. And the first salon was opened in Haddington Road in 1878. Anne is very proud of this tradition, and I can make a quote here to say that she swore she would never be a hairdresser or work for herself. And she got that half right. Anne's mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 1989, and she was 21 and her mother was 47. And it was a huge shock in her life. So she was in college studying social science. Anne's mum was a beautician in Kimmage, and her father was a hairdresser. But her father eventually found himself trained in wig fitting. And when Anne's mother needed a wig fitting, her husband had to do that for her. So that was, I suppose, quite an honor in some ways, but also maybe quite difficult. Anne studied an MSc on the experience of cancer patients undergoing treatment, and started attending to people with hair loss due to chemotherapy, alopecia, and natural thinning of the hair. In 1998, at 30, Anne was diagnosed with a malignant melanoma, and this changed her life and her course again. So Anne packed in her 10-year career in social policy and trained as a wig fitter. The rest is history, and Anne is here to tell that story today. So I'm sorry, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 minute and reshare just to see if I can get the program up, because we'd like to be able to see that if we can. Okay, so there's Anne. We'll see her for real in a minute. She's up there on screen anyway. And this will just give you some insight into how, you know, where Anne has come from and why she's with us today. There's a real passion in the work she does, and very inspiring for people, getting them back into their new world with confidence and ability. So Anne is going to talk to us about preparing for treatment and hair loss. So she's going to look at exploring all options before you lose your hair. Look at chemo and choosing the right head covering for you. Having a conversation about cold caps, which is very popular, choices and options. To shave or not to shave, again, another very topical conversation. And to cut your own hair short before treatment or not. Scalp care is also extremely important with wig care and tips, and being comfortable and confident wearing your wig and headwear, and also hair care on cold cap. And finally, for the last 10 minutes of this part of the presentation, Anna's going to talk about nourish and hydrate scalp and hair, managing wig and hair growing underneath, and hair regrowth, coloring post-chemo hair, and again, that's another very topical conversation, and befriending the new you, which is extremely important. So Anne, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I think we're going over to Kimmage, to your salon there, are we, or your clinic?
Yeah.
So it's lovely to see you, Anne.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave now and leave you on full screen so that we can get the most out of your clinic. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Helen, for that lovely introduction. Makes me feel quite old to realise how much I've done. And I really love the quote you put up there that obviously I wrote, because it kind of reminds me of why I do what I do. And I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but when I remember why I'm talking and who I'm talking to, it makes it a lot easier. So you're all very welcome today, and I hope what I say is relevant and helpful. There's Q&A at the end, so you can ask your questions if I haven't covered what you're interested in during the presentation. So I'm going to start by talking to you about, obviously I don't know the audience, so I'm not really sure what stage of treatment you're at. Are you beginning? Are you midway through? Are you at the end? Are you years on? But I'm going to try and cover very briefly, give you a kind of an overview of hair, scalp, wigs. So I'm going to start by talking about preparing for treatment and hair loss. So I'm talking to people who maybe are newly diagnosed and are fumbling around for information, not sure where to go, what to do, who to bring. So basically, preparing for treatment, I would say the first thing to say to you is, whether it's, depending on the type of chemotherapy you're on, generally your hair is not going to fall for 2 to 4 weeks after the first treatment, depending whether your cycle is weekly, fortnight, or every 3 weeks. So don't panic. We like to see you as early as possible, because the earlier you come for fitting, no matter where you go, the better the chances, less stress. We have more time if we don't have an item in stock for you that we can order it. And it's just generally less pressurized. If people arrive to us when their hair is coming out, sometimes it can be more difficult to match their hair, and they're going to be relying on photographs, which is still absolutely possible, but just if you can, come a little bit earlier. So in prepping for your treatment, I would say you want to explore all your options for hair loss. You want to so decide to spend some time, visit a wig clinic, bring a trusted person with you. When I say a trusted person, I mean somebody who is going to be honest with you about your hair. Sometimes we have spouses coming in and they're not really that interested or helpful in terms of feedback. So bring somebody that you know is going to be really honest and help you. Make sure you're allowed time. Make sure you have a good selection of wigs to choose from, and make sure that there's good lighting and that you've enough time and you're given lots of choice. And you need to try wigs on. You really can't choose a wig from a brochure, so you really do need to try wigs on. Just in relation to the time frame, just something that I just want to mention, it's about eyebrows. A lot of people fret about the eyebrows. Eyebrows are the last thing to go and they're the first thing to come back. So generally your eyebrows, if they go, they may just thin. It probably won't happen until about 6 or 8 weeks into your treatment. But if you have your treatment date and it's a month or 5 weeks ahead, you do have the option of going for fee brows. Because they require 2 visits and there's a month gap in between. Once you start your treatment, generally oncologists don't like you getting fee brows because it is breaking the skin. Although gently, it is breaking the skin and just making it a little bit prone to infection. But if you have that 4 or 5 week window beforehand, by all means, you could certainly get fee brows. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about the different types of wigs. Now, obviously, we've 10 minutes to do this. So I'm just going to show you, I have a few samples, and please excuse my PPE, but we are in the salon, we are operating. So we have to have all this stuff, and all this stuff will be steamed afterwards. But I just want to show you a couple of options of wigs. So this is, I'll better show you with the model. I've never done this before, it feels like a cookery demo. This is a synthetic wig, just to give you an idea. And synthetic wigs are fantastic. They're a lower budget option. They're easy maintenance. They're wash and go, so there's no maintenance. They come in a huge range of colors and styles. I'll just take her off and just give you a little look at the cap underneath. So this one has a lace front, which means that you can actually wear the wig off your head. It's graduated at the back, so it's a really practical wig, because sometimes the synthetic wigs go frizzy, especially if they're rubbing against your clothes or your collar. But with a wig that's cut up at the back like this, you're not going to get that friction frizz. So it's a really practical, lightweight, low maintenance wig. So that's a synthetic option. Then we have a human hair option, which is generally it's people with longer hair that tend to go for human hair, or people that want to wear their hair down. So this is a human hair wig. We were doing virtual fits during COVID when we would have to put the wigs onto our head to show the clients. Hopefully we won't go back into that situation again, but that's what we were doing. But this is a human hair wig. It's a really good wig. It's hand tied, so that's very comfortable to wear. It has what's called a monofilament top, which means your wig is see-through, so you can actually, I don't know if you can see my finger there through the wig, but you'll actually see your own scalp through the wig. So it literally looks like the hair is growing from your head. These wigs tend to be finer, because before this technology existed, they used to have to knot lots of hair into the wig to cover the base. Now, because of the base, they can expose the base, and so it looks really, really natural. The wigs can be, they're all adjustable, and they come in different sizes. I will mention size later as well. And then this is the new kid on the block. These are heat resistant wigs. We love these. These have the best of both worlds. So there's a mix of human and synthetic hair, which basically means you can wash that or get wet in the rain, the lovely weather we have now. You can get wet today in the rain, let that drip dry, and it will bounce back to its shape. But unlike the synthetic wig, if you want to change the style in this, if you wanted to give it a fuller, make it a fuller blow dry, or put some waves into it, you can apply heat to this. So this is a very versatile, low maintenance, but with the option to change your style. Again, sorry, you okay? So again, we have our lace front, and we've got our hand tied. Having said all that about the different types of wigs, I would suggest that when you come to your fitting, that you actually forget about all that knowledge. Come in, sit down, try on the wigs, and find out which one you feel most comfortable in. Because sometimes people come in with kind of an agenda that they've researched online, and sometimes they're really limiting their choices. And at the end of the day, most people you want to feel comfortable in your wig, and you want to feel confident in your wig. So if you don't feel comfortable wearing the wig, you won't wear it. And you're going to be wearing the wig for a couple of months. So it's good to as I said, take your time, get a second opinion, and make sure you feel comfortable in the wig. Most people want to look the same. That's our experience. Now, we do have some people that will decide to go blue, but generally, majority of people, even when they decide to come in with their friends and they decide they want to do something different, 9 times out of 10, a week later there'll be a call and they come back in on their own and they want a wig that looks like them. So that's just a couple of little overview into choosing a wig and preparing for your hair loss. Just in terms of you preparing your hair, sometimes people think, oh, there's no point coloring my hair or getting any treatments because I'm going to lose it. As I said earlier, find out what your time frame is, and if your time, you can predict when your hair is going to go, and then make a decision as to whether you want to color your hair or cut your hair in advance of your treatment. It is good to actually give your hair really good nourishing conditioning treatments before treatment, because you're nourishing the scalp as well. So you want your scalp, even though your hair is going to go, you want your scalp to be really nourished and hydrated and in good nick heading into your treatment. Just going to mention cold cap, because a lot of people do have the option of cold cap. It's not available for everybody, but if cold cap is offered to you, we always still recommend that you come for a consultation, and I'll tell you why. Because the last thing that you want to happen is that you're going through cold cap and you unexpectedly find that it's not working as well as you thought it might, and that you have to come in last minute and there's a big panic. And 9 times out of 10, what will happen is the particular wig you love will be on back order. So it's much better to come in advance. Consultations are free, and at least you see what's available, and you can put your mind at rest and know that if you do need to get a wig, that you have an option there. But I'm just going to show you one little option that's really interesting for cold cap. Cold cap is, just for people who don't know about cold cap, it's basically a mechanism that's put onto your head that slows down your hair falling. And it doesn't always work. Generally the hair does fall, but it just falls slower. You are recommended on cold cap to wash your hair as little as possible. You can't colour your hair, minimum use of heating tools and hair dryers and stuff like that. So sometimes you can be kind of going around with limp, fine, uncoloured hair showing, and people can be a little bit miserable with that sometimes. So this is a really interesting option. This is just one of many, but this is like a little hair piece. So if I just show you on this little lady here, she had hair underneath. If you, so imagine that your hair is limp and fine and you're not really able to wash it and you've got roots showing. You can clip that onto the top of your hair, or you can secure it with a hairband. It just gives you an outer covering of perfect hair, and you still leave your own hair underneath. But it just makes you look a little bit more presentable every day, going out without having to worry about managing your own hair underneath. So this is something we use for people with hair thinning all the time, but it's a good option for cold cap. Another option for cold cap for your roots is like a little colour stick. So this is a colour stick you could use if your hair is really thinning. You can get a colour stick, or you can get little sprinkles like this. So if your scalp is really starting to show through, you get one of these, you match it up to the colour of your hair, that's for blonde. You sprinkle it onto your scalp and it clings to the fibres, and it just colours in that see-through part of your scalp and blends it in with your hair. It gives the illusion that your hair is fuller. And likewise, colour stick, I'm sure lots of us discovered these during COVID when we couldn't get to the hairdresser. But again, you can colour in your roots with these, and it just makes you look like you don't have the roots showing. This is actually also really handy for when your hair is growing back after treatment, and if it's a different colour, sometimes it can come back grey, and if it's going down a little bit grey at your locks and the back, and you're wearing a short wig, you can colour in your locks with a colour stick, rather than feeling that you have to shave them off, which you don't want to do. So moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit now about whether to shave or not. So just to show you, this is the razor. Sometimes people ask us, when should I shave my head? When should I shave my hair? So what we always say is, wait, I would not even think about it until you have your head covering sorted out. Whether that's a wig or headwear, which actually I need to mention as well to you. So I'll show you some headwear in a minute. But the decision about shaving your hair, you don't have to, there's no right or wrong way. Just to say to you though, when your hair starts to come out, it doesn't all drop in one go. It's just like the hair in your head has just suddenly got loose. So you can do that and some hair will come out. So you'll see hair in your brush, you might see some hair on your pillow, you might see some hair when you put your clothes on and off. So at that point, I never do a head shave until I check that the locks are gone. So always make sure that all of your hair around your perimeter is gone, because that's precious hair. It looks really good to have a little bit of hair showing under your headwear. But if you want to shave, there's no right time. Most wig places would do it for you. There's no major advantage. The only thing I would say is it can be a little bit distressing with finding the hair coming out and coming onto clothes and you know, around your house and stuff like that. So generally, I find people are relieved when they do actually shave their head and just move on and put your wig on, and then you're on to the next. You're on to the next stage of the journey. When you shave, if you're shaving yourself, you never go right into the head. You always use a 1 or 2 blade, and you definitely need to leave your scalp alone for about 24 hours after, and put no moisturizer on, because you can get a thing called folliculitis. So, but if you want to just cut up your hair short, some people go through different stages, and there's no right or wrong way. So you can always just get your hair short, or you can actually let it all come out naturally, whatever works for you. Another little tip, if your hair is long, tying it up will just stop the weight of it pulling your hair out faster. But for longer hair, you can get a little bit of matting. So for longer hair, I would just be careful, because it can get a little bit it can kind of pull the little minor hairs on your head if you let it get matted. In terms of cutting your own hair short, this is a really common question. So a lot of times people are told by somebody to cut their hair shorter because it kind of get you used to your hair shorter and kind of help with the transition from your own hair to a wig or to losing your hair. The only thing I would say is get your wig, if you're choosing a wig, get your wig first, because if you have long hair and you decide to put your hair up to a bob because you're getting used to it, and then you come in for your fitting and you choose to get a wig that was the same length as your hair, it's going to look a little bit odd. And most people want to make a kind of a seamless transition from their hair to their wig. So that's that covered. Just want to talk to you about headwear, because not everybody wants a wig, and I'm sure people will want to know a little bit about allowances. So most, if you have a medical card, you will get a good contribution towards your wig. The allowances do vary across the country, but you will get a good allowance. Definitely will fully cover a synthetic wig. You will also, if you have private insurance, you will be covered for your wig. Again, they vary with providers. And if you work and you pay tax, you can claim it. It's a medical expense, so you can claim it as a Med 1. But if for whatever reason you choose you don't want to wear a wig, and I would suggest that you try on wigs, because sometimes people have very negative perceptions of wigs, and then when they see them, they're pleasantly surprised. But if you say, no, wigs are not for me, there's lots and lots of other options. So there's loads of different types of headwear. I'll just show you a quick few. So we've lots of types. You can have headwear that has glitzy. You can get like a base hat, which is what we often recommend. Get a little base hat like this, and get a couple of them that you like the shape of. Some of the hats will have ruching on top to create the illusion of height, so it looks like your hair is underneath. Some people suggest putting a shoulder pad in underneath your hat to give you a little bit of height. You can wrap scarves and all kinds of costume jewelry. You can decorate this. You can do lots and lots of things if you're that way inclined, if you're feeling creative. There's lots of options of headwear that's ready to go as well. So they have the ties and the wraps all pre-done. Another little option for headwear, and there's lots of headwear in bamboo, and bamboo is really lovely and cool, and it wicks away sweat and it's thermoregulating, so that's really, really cool and comfortable to wear. Another option for headwear is, if you're wearing headwear, you can get little pieces of hair that you can put underneath your wig. So I don't know if you can see this here, but you can get, this is like a halo of hair. So you can get hair hanging down, you can get hair that just has a little fringe. I can find my fringe, yeah. You can just get a little fringe that pops up under your hat. And it's amazing the difference that those make. People always laugh when you take these out at a fitting, but if you're used to a fringe and then you put a hat on and you've got a forehead showing, it can really look a little bit, a lot of people think, oh, I don't know about that. But once you pop that fringe in, because they've just got a little bit of hair showing, it can make all the difference. So they're great, like for if you're walking, exercising, or just hot and humid weather like we've been having. There's also, just to give you a few little options to show you. That's one that has wavy hair. So there's loads of options, and I suppose that's probably the thing I always like to suggest, or to kind of for people to take home from a workshop, is there's loads and loads of options. So never be afraid to ask. And if you don't like wigs, there's options. There's so many options now for every taste and every lifestyle preference. So just ask. Okay, so I think I've covered preparing for hair. Just one quick little thing as well. If you find your wig is uncomfortable, no, that's actually in the next section, sorry. Okay, moving on to the next section now. So the next section is managing your hair, your scalp, and your wig during treatment. So the first thing I want to talk to is about your scalp. So you're going to have possibly a lovely shiny head like this. And you might think, well, I've no hair, so I don't need to wash my hair. So yeah, you don't need to wash your hair, but you do need to wash your scalp because you want to exfoliate your scalp. You want to remove all the dead cells, and then you want to hydrate your scalp during your treatment. So you need to put something, rub something onto your scalp. And many people do find with treatment that their hair can, their skin can get quite dry. It might get a little bit sensitive. It might be a little bit itchy. So putting some, a nice hydrating product, it can be sweet almond oil, it could be coconut oil, it could be one of our specialist creams for cancer treated skin. But whatever you put on, put something on your scalp. Make sure, get into the habit of putting it on every evening when you go to bed, when you take your wig or your hat off. Just pop a little bit on your head and away you go. And that's going to nourish your scalp. It's also going to make your hair grow back a little bit straighter. So a lot of times post-treatment, your hair can have that post-chemo. It's actually not curl, it's actually frizz because your hair is so depleted in moisture and protein. So if you moisturize your scalp during your treatment, you're really preparing your scalp. You're getting your scalp prepared for the hair to grow back. And the scalp is where the hair is going to grow from. So you're going to make that have that really well prepared. So then some tips for your wigs when you're wearing your wig. So we're wearing our wig now, we've had it fitted. Sometimes when we're fitting wigs, we do measure the head to make sure that it's the right size. But sometimes people have a lot of hair underneath. When your hair goes, if you find your wig is a little bit loose, this is my pet hate, is to go into a hospital. Well, we're not in hospitals anymore, but to see somebody and they're wearing the wig down like that, probably because they're afraid the wig's going to blow off and the wig is too big for their head. So they're pulling it down to make sure it's secure. Your wig needs to be 4 fingers from the bridge of your nose, or just, you may be able to see the difference in skin tone between your hairline. But if your wig is a little bit loose, it can be adjusted. We can take the wigs in, we can take some panels out of the back. And so go back to wherever you got your wig. Likewise, if your wig isn't comfortable, go back. You know, sometimes wigs need to be stretched a little bit, they need to be adjusted. And if you don't feel comfortable in your wig, you've purchased it, you've lost your hair now, you're wearing your wig and you don't feel comfortable in it. If it's because it's kind of itchy or hot, I would highly recommend these little items. These are bamboo liner. Again, bamboo is thermoregulating, it's antibacterial. That little cap is popped onto the head under the wig, and it just is like a little barrier between the wig and your scalp, and it will keep you nice and cool and it will keep you nice and comfortable. There's also another little product which is called a comfy grip, and that is also, it's a gel filled band, and it's for people if they find the wig really intense on their head, that they feel pressure from the wig on their head. Some people hate wearing hats or have anything on their head. This can be really handy. You just wrap it around like this and you attach it here, and it just, again, provides a little buffer between your wig and your head. You can also put that in the fridge and it'll be nice and cold when you put it on your head. This is also actually very useful for when your hair is growing back underneath your wig, and sometimes you'll find that your hair is pushing the wig and it's not feeling as secure as it used to. That's very handy because there's actually a grip on it. So your wig will grip to this and give you a little bit more security. Another thing is, if you find that you're not comfortable in your wig because you don't like the appearance of it, you think it looks too thick, or just go back to where you got it, because you can cut wigs. There's loads of little things you can do with a wig. I'll put another one on just to show you. So you can cut a wig, you can cut a fringe into a wig, you can create the illusion of the wig being a lot finer than it is by having a feathered fringe, by putting some layers around your face. If you have a longer wig, you can tie it up, you can bring it behind your ears. You know, you can tie up a wig once you leave some little tendrils around the side. You obviously don't want to expose the hairline, but there's lots and lots of things you can do. So always ask, and we're always at the end of the phone if you have any queries like that. The main one, I think, is that sometimes people are just lacking a little bit of confidence, because it is hard to walk out the first time you wear a wig. And many times, Margaret will test to this, we've had people at workshops who weren't wearing their wig, and just them taking out the wig out, and say myself putting the wig on, showing them how to put it on properly again, and having an audience. Loads of times they walk out with the wig on, because it just needed that little boost of confidence. So that's kind of some tips on scalp during your treatment, wig care and tips. Yeah, make sure to look after your wig. So follow the instructions on how to wash and condition your wig. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers that. So now I'm going to move on to the hair care post-treatment. And the main question we're always asked is, when can I colour my hair? That's the primary question. So you need to wait 6 months post-treatment before you can use anything that has peroxide and ammonia. Peroxide is what lifts colour, so you will not be able to get to be blonde for at least 5 to 6 months after your treatment. Generally, like we would do a patch, we'd obviously always get a patch test, and you can test the hair strength. I had noticed that some people who are on different regimes of chemo, their hair starts to grow back before the end. So obviously we would kind of take that into consideration. If your hair has started to grow, we may decide, you know, before the end of your treatment, we can adjust that date. But the reason that we say not to put ammonia or peroxide into your hair for 6 months is you need to allow that new hair to become strong, to be able to withstand the chemical, because hair colouring, no matter what colour you're using, it has got chemicals in it. You can't lift colour without chemical, and if you've got grey is quite resistant, and you generally need the ammonia and the peroxide. Ammonia, there's a lot of colours that don't have ammonia anymore, but they will have something in place of ammonia in order to open the cuticle and allow the colour to penetrate. So wait 6 months. In between times, as I said, you can use your colour stick. You can use a wash in, wash out colour once it doesn't have ammonia or peroxide. You can go to your chemist, go to your pharmacy, but just be very careful, because a lot of those products, sometimes they will have, check your ingredients just to be sure that it is a clean colour. As I said, it won't really cover grey. Those colours won't cover grey. At the 6 month mark, we would highly recommend that you go for an organic colour. Organic colours, as I said, there are still chemicals in the colour, but a lot of times they're using botanicals. This is the colour that we use, Organic Way, and it's pretty much plant-based. But having said that, there always has to be a little bit of chemical. So that's colouring. Before you get to the stage of colouring, what we want you to do is your hair start to grow back, and start to add either protein or moisture to your hair. That's what your hair, your scalp, your hair are going to be depleted in protein and moisture. So like a rebuilding shampoo that has lots of protein in it, or a hydrating shampoo that's going to hydrate, to prepare yourself for the colour. Or some people decide they don't want to colour. They feel they love their new grey, which is absolutely amazing, and they decide they want to go natural, and that's a perfectly valid and legitimate option as well. But lots of people do want to kind of get back to themselves. What I would say is we have so many clients that come in and they say, everybody's telling me, oh, you look great with your grey, but they actually say, I hate my grey because I just don't recognise myself. And we do find as well, like that people, it is another stage. Post-treatment is another stage of treatment. So you're coming back to yourself, your hair is starting to come back. Sometimes it can be a little bit of an anticlimax in the sense that the hair isn't the same as it was before. So the colour may have changed and the texture may have changed. Most likely they will revert back to the way they were. But in the interim, you may have slightly wavy and a slightly different colour hair. We do find when people get their colour, that's okay, so it's a short style, it's a different texture, but their colour is more or less back. And beware, your first colour won't be the best colour you ever got, because we're working with post-chemo virgin hair, but it is a process to get back. But I do find that generally when people get their hair coloured, it's kind of the next step is to to take the wig off and move back into having a new style. And we're happy to help you then as well with kind of managing a new type of curl or wave or texture in your hair, and short hair, because most people, their hair is shorter than it was prior to treatment. So I think I have pretty much covered everything that I was going to cover, and not doing too badly for time. It's 1:42, so we might open for questions. Helen?
Come back into you now, Anne. Thank you so much. My gosh, haven't we moved on so much in hair care and scalp care? Yeah, it's brilliant. It's lovely to see. And your passion is showing through.
That was a fast track.
Yeah, but I'm sure like within the hour people get a lot from that.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important, like for people, you know, when you're looking at physical appearance, that your knowledge and expertise is helping them to ask certain questions. And I really like what you said there. If you don't like your wig, go back to where you bought it and, you know, ask for something different. Really important, isn't it? Because you don't have to stay with what you have.
Absolutely, yeah. You can change it. Like we can cut wigs, we can pin them. You can do all. You can't generally change the color, but you can absolutely change it up. Yeah.
And I know, so like something else, you know, that is really evident is once somebody is happy with their hair, they rebuild their confidence, and it's very empowering for them to get back to their new world, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's why it's so rewarding for us, because generally people, I often say I feel like a dentist. Sometimes people are coming in, they're so nervous, they're so anxious, and they generally are like so relieved, like that, God, I look okay at both ends, at the fitting end for the wig, and then at the post chemo hair end as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go in, we'll maybe look at some questions, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of ladies here who are actually sharing their name, which is lovely. So Elizabeth is asking, what is the most popular wig that is sold?
Well, it changes. I think at the moment the heat resistant ones are really, really popular because they have the flexibility of being able to change the style, but they're low maintenance. So they're perfect because for people who haven't started their treatment, you can be quite busy on your treatment. You know, you've got your multiple hospital appointments, getting your bloods done, going for your chemo, lots of different things. So sometimes you haven't got time to maintain a human hair wig. And they are harder to manage. Human hair is harder to manage than your normal hair, because you do have to put it on a block. And you know, it's just not the same. You need to blow dry it to make it look well, and we do it for people, but that's another job to get somebody to drop your wig in and pick it up. So the fiber ones are really popular because they're easy maintenance, and for the people with a little bit longer hair, the heat resistant ones, again, because they're low maintenance. I know hair loss during cancer, it sounds like it's a long time because it's 6 to 12 months, but relatively speaking, it is short-term hair loss. So an easy care option is probably, I would think, the best option.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question there from Lucy. At what point in regrowth should you get your first haircut after treatment? And then the second question, how long should hair be, or do I just let it keep going?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I forgot to cover that. So your hair generally grows at ½ an inch a month, and generally starts to grow about 2 to 4 weeks after your treatment. So what we say is, I want to make this very clear. There's a myth out there that if you shave your head 3 times, it makes your hair grow back thicker. That is a myth. You can't change the structure of your hair by cutting or shaving your head. So when we recommend to do your first trim, all we're doing is we're cutting off that first fuzzy downy first stage of hair growth. It's not going to make your hair grow thicker. It's just evening out your hair so it looks better. If your hair looks perfectly fine as it's growing, you don't actually have to cut that off. But generally, because your hair can grow a little bit unevenly, it's good to trim it. And just sometimes your hair grows thinner at the front and thicker at the back, so don't panic and think your hair isn't growing back. What I would say though to the question, to answer that question, when we can pick up enough hair to put between 2 fingers, so you're talking about just above a finger width, so about ½ an inch of hair would be the time to come to have it trimmed if you feel it needs it. If it looks okay, you can let it grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a comment here before we go into more questions, because I think it's nice to be acknowledged for what you've just done today. And it's from Bernie's sister in the background, actually. So she said, Roches Hair were brilliant and so helpful to me when going for my first wig. Also so supportive to my 16-year-old daughter, who became very emotional when I had my hair shaved. That's lovely, isn't it? Because I'm sure it happens all the time.
Absolutely. Like it is so, I even get emotional when I think about it myself, you know. It's a really, really challenging time for people, and people are so resilient. Like you come into work feeling bad and you walk out feeling grateful, because people are just amazing. But yeah, and it's very hard for support people as well sometimes to be watching their mom having their head shaved and having to kind of contain themselves. So yeah.
And I suppose it's actually very important for them to be a part of it too, if they're very difficult for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously with COVID now, we can only allow one person in with the client. But before, we've had many people even who have involved their children, you know, because they felt they want their children not to be frightened. And I think that's a fantastic attitude to have. And they make it into a fun thing, and it's all normalized, and it's just part of treatment. Everybody deals with it differently, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to another question. There's a few more questions here. So Elizabeth is asking, what is a typical price for each wig type? Now, I know, Anne, you've touched on medical cards and the, you know, good contribution and claims. So I suppose she's asking typical price.
Typical price for synthetic wigs would vary from about 240 to about 520, depends on the length of the wig, and more importantly depends on the base. And the finer wigs tend to be more expensive because they have the monofilament and the lace and the hand tied. But 240 to 520 for synthetic. For the heat resistant, you're talking probably about 700 to about 950. And for the human hair, you're talking about 900 to about 1300. Obviously, you can go, that's us, you can go way up the scale on both, but that would be, they would be good quality, suitable to be worn every single day. And just to give you a quick overview, HSE, the minimum allowance is €500. So you will get a good synthetic wig for your allowance. And obviously, you know, we always take a person's situation into account, so we are flexible. If somebody is really strapped, we do payment plans, but we have a little fund as well. With that, and then the VHI will pay for your full wig, and Leo will pay 50% of whatever you get. Okay.
And can you buy real hair wigs on the medical card?
Yes, you just have to put the allowance. Yeah, you just have to match the allowance. It's a topic we'd love the medication to take up, which is the inequality in allowances. The allowances range from 500 to 767, depending on where you live.
Okay.
We have the same issue with breast care, but anyway, that's another day's work. But depending on your address, it's not a discrimination. It's basically a legacy from the old health board system.
Right.
They are supposed to be streamlining it, but it just hasn't happened.
Time for change.
Absolutely.
Lots of change in COVID time, so why not?
Yeah.
Okay. Another question here, Anne. Can I wear my wig at night time, or is it best not to? Would it damage the wig?
It would damage your wig, especially if it's a synthetic wig. You can't wear it at night time because it will go frizzy. With the friction of it lying against your pillow and collar and everything like that, no, you can't wear a synthetic wig. You could wear the heat resistant wigs because you can blow dry out the frizz, and you could wear a human hair wig because you can blow dry it, but you're really going to be increasing your maintenance on your product, and it's not going to last you as long. So I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, the little sleep hats are perfect for bed. If you're really self-conscious about your hair, I'd say wear one of these little halos underneath your hat. Or else buy a really cheap wig. We have some wigs that are ex-stock that you could wear. Sometimes people do that at night. Just very quickly, there are wigs that you can wear in bed. They're like systems that can be glued on. They're not suitable for people on chemo in the sense that you could use them, but you'd have a very short window. So that's a very expensive option. You can only wear them when you've no hair. So we would fit people with alopecia with those. But for the odd occasion, if it was synthetic, if it was heat resistant or human, I would say it's fine.
Okay,
But
great.
definitely not synthetic.
Yeah. So I'll take two more questions here, Anne, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
An anonymous attendee asking, any tips on using heat tools on a human hair wig?
Yeah, and again, great question. Keep the heat to a medium, especially if it's blonde. Like a human hair wig, for the price range that I've been talking, it's generally Remy hair. So it's generally Indian, Chinese, or a mix of both. If you're looking at European hair, you're going to be talking 3,000 to 5,000 euro. But so generally for the wigs that most of the wig shops would be selling, your wig has gone through 3 chemical processes. It's been bleached, it's been decuticalized, and then it's been colored. So although it looks great, it's actually a damaged hair. So especially if it's blonde, you want to really go easy on the heat tools. So medium heat, and I would say as infrequently as possible. And if you're using a straightener, don't keep it moving, don't leave it. So keep it moving, but try to kind of minimize. I would say once a week to use the heated tools.
Okay, so we'll take one more question if that's all right, Anne, and it's from Nuala. So Nuala has said, hi, does hair after chemo always grow back grey, or does it depend on whether you are premenopausal? I have a very sensitive scalp, and I'm afraid I am not able to color, having only had highlights previously.
Okay. So a lot of times hair does come back grey, even if it hasn't been grey before. It's because the pigment is a little bit all over the place. So even really young people can sometimes they can get like a patch of white here and a patch of black over here. But generally, if you're kind of, I would say late 40s onwards, you are going to come back with a mixed grey. I mean, let's face it, most of us probably haven't seen our actual natural colour because we colour it. So it probably is, there's bits of grey in it anyway. Just in relation to the sensitivity that Nuala is talking about, highlights are the best. Mesh or highlights are the gentlest form of colour because you're not putting the colour onto your scalp. Obviously, you're going to have to wait your hair grows down a fair bit for that. But a lot of the organic colours, like they don't have ammonia, they have pharmaceutical peroxide, so they are way more gentle. They will all have a little bit of PPD if it's dark colours, but still, they really are pretty good, and they're pretty widespreadly available now as well. So she should be able to find an option.
Great. Well, Anne, I have to say thank you so much for your expertise. We've worked for a long time, and I've met you in other places too, and I know how valuable your service, your expertise, and your compassion for people is, in their time of need. You haven't mentioned your website, but you're very well known, I think, in Ireland anyway. But if you do want to mention your website, Anne, please do.
Yeah, so our website is www.roches.ie. We have an e-commerce site as well. There's lots of tips. We have Facebook and we're on Instagram. And the email is info@roches.ie. So if anybody has any questions that maybe they didn't feel comfortable asking publicly, you're more than welcome to ask them privately, and Anne with an E at roches.ie if you want to email me directly. And thanks very much, Helen.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you so much to Margaret in the background from Look Good, Feel Better. I'm going to try and share my screen again here now and just talk about a few things that we've got coming up from the Marie Keating Foundation, which are quite exciting. So we'd like to share them before we do go, if I can. Okay. So we've done our questions and answers. I'd really like to thank everybody who has contributed and asked questions. I hope they got the answers they wanted. I'm sure they did. But equally, you can contact Anne or Look Good, Feel Better on their websites or personally through the information that Anne and Margaret have provided. So thank you all for watching. And before we go, as I said, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the services we offer at the Marie Keating at the moment. And obviously we have transitioned, like most people have, from the very valuable face-to-face to online working. And we appreciate that it may not be the same, but equally we are there for people every step of the way through this whole COVID journey, before and after, hopefully, when we come out of this. So we do run a positive living support group, and this is running twice a month at the moment since COVID. We realize that, you know, there's a group of ladies who are very vulnerable, cocooning, and you know, afraid to be in the outside world sometimes. So it's really nice that they connect online. Our next positive living workshop is on the 27th of August, and they're usually between 12 and 2. Bernie, who's in the background there, manages our corporate wellness webinars. So if there's any companies or businesses that would like, or even communities that want to learn more about reducing your risks of cancer, please come along. It's the start of a journey. You learn about signs and symptoms, and you also learn about you know, your own family history and risks that might be associated with you or your family. Really important in this day and age. We have Survive and Thrive workshops, and these are for people who have actually had a cancer diagnosis, have completed treatment and are out the other side, but actually finding it quite isolating, and I would imagine even more so now, and are in need of that help and support and the guidance to self-manage themselves and into their new world. And we have a 6-week program starting on the 22nd of September, and we will also have a program from November into December. So do keep an eye on our events page for all of these events. We have an Ask the Nurse service, so if anybody wants to ask any questions after this event or at any point in time, you can either email in or call the office on 01628 3726. We have found ourselves that some of the calls are much more complex during COVID, and people are obviously quite anxious and worried. Our community outreach service is running since June, but on a very small scale. As you can imagine, we are outdoors, and that's fine, but being invited into, I suppose, centres is quite difficult at the moment too. Okay, so this is a big event. And I hope you will all tune in. It's our Concert for Cancer. It will be live on Virgin Media One on the 28th of August, which is Friday week, at 9 p.m. for 2 hours. And this really is to help to support the services that we run and the services that we've just talked about, you know, bigger and better. So it's going to be a fantastic event. We're all very, very excited about it. So please do tune in and donate where you can. And again, maybe some of you in the audience are carers for people with cancer. And again, we've realized over the whole COVID period, and much before that too, that it was an area that maybe was neglected to some degree. So we have a carers webinar for 4 weeks from the 9th to the 30th of September. We have Dr. Eddie Murphy, who's a clinical psychologist, helping us with that. We're also working with Family Carers Ireland and the Irish Hospice Foundation. So we're very excited about bringing new information and support resources to you in that regard. So before I sign off, we'd really just like to wish you well, stay safe, protect each other. Things are quite difficult out there again, and some people are you know, in a second lockdown. We do need to hold firm. We are in this together, but we need to stay connected, and we will make it through. And of course, masks are mandatory, almost mandatory now, and reduce risks. They help each other. We, you know, to actually look after each other. And do tune in to our next Lunchtime Live. We're very excited about Mary Drummond coming to talk to us on the 9th of September at 1 p.m. And Mary's going to talk to us about men's health and look good, feel better. So that'll be quite exciting to look into, and it'll be interesting to see how many men and women tune into that one. So on that note, I'm going to say good night, good day. And Anne and Margaret, thank you so much for your contribution today. Thank you.
Thank you.